Hi guys, welcome back to another awesome Next.js 13.5 video. In this video, I will talk about one of the most demanding topic called authorization and authentication. So let me show you what I will be building in this video. So this is the login page. We can navigate to the register page, login page, and dashboard page is actually private. It is protected. So when I will be login with the different user, I'll be able to navigate to this particular route, and we can navigate to the home route. Home route is the public. So let me show you what we have on this login page. In the login page, we have this form. We can log in with the credentials. We can log in with the GitHub, and the process that I'll be showing you login with GitHub, you can follow the same process to log in with other providers as well. From here, we can navigate to the register page, and from register page, we can register a new user. I'll be creating a new API route in Next.js 13.5 that will handle the registration and storing the data of users in the MongoDB here. And once the user is successfully registered along with the proper validations and the data is stored in the MongoDB database, we can navigate to the login page, and here we can log in with the registered user which is stored in the database. And I'll show you how we can store the data of the user when we log in with the GitHub as well. So I'll be using Next-Auth.js library to implement the login, authorization, and login with the GitHub. So let me show you what we have here by running this small authorization and authentication app. So we have this login page. If I try to log in with these credentials, it will show me this error message, and we can modify these error messages as you want. We can add loaders, we can show the models, tooltips, but the main focus of this video is the core functionality. And the reason it has shown this message because the user with this email ID is not stored in the database. You can see it is showing the query result 0. All right. First of all, I need to navigate to the register here. I can navigate from here or by clicking on this register here button. Okay. So the umair2@admin.com and the password is ABCD1234. I can click on register. We can add different loaders, and it processed that registration for the user and automatically navigated to this login page. Okay. But first of all, let me go to this Mongo Atlas and click on this refresh button and see if that user with that email ID is registered or not. You can see that it is registered with this ID automatically generated, and we have this encrypted password which I have implemented with the code, okay, using the bcrypt package. All right, so let's go back, and now if I try to log in with this email ID which is registered in the database, if I click on it, now you can see that I'm successfully able to log in, and we don't have the login register links at the navbar. We can actually log out by clicking on this button. We can navigate to the dashboard page which was previously protected because I was not logged in or authorized with this page. Okay, and we have this email ID with which I have actually successfully logged in, and this email ID is actually stored in the database. All right, so let me navigate to different routes and we can actually log out over here. So if I click on this login, we can actually log in with the GitHub as well. If we have this page, let me click on this login with GitHub, and I will show you how we can store the data for this particular user which has this email ID, which is the email ID for my GitHub account, and I'm successfully logged in. First time it will show you a pop-up or a model to authorize the GitHub with this application. Okay, I've already authorized, that's why it did not show on my system. So I'm successfully logged in. I can navigate to the dashboard page and even log in with the GitHub. This user is also getting stored in the database. All right, now you can see that it is stored. The reason it is not showing the password because when we use any provider, we don't provide any password. That's why I'm not storing this email ID for this user in the database. The reason I'm storing the user details in the database for both GitHub, credentials, or any other provider which we might want to use, because later on if we have other models like the settings, profile, data analytics that we want to link with the user, then user details should be stored in the database. Then we will be able to make some relationship between different models. And I will be creating a long crash course video with the complete blog application. Maybe you can suggest what kind of app I should be building, a production level app, in upcoming videos. Comment below if you have any suggestions. Okay, So this is the whole application. I have MongoDB, I have this Next-Auth, and this is the small authorization and authentication process that I'll be showing you. Before moving further and start implementing this small authorization application, I just want to request you guys, if I go to my channel, I will be navigating to my Next.js 13 tutorial. You will see that I've already created more than 30 videos on Next.js 13, covering almost all major topics that you would require to become a good Next.js 13 developer. So you can check out my playlist or other playlists as well on Angular 16, React.js, ChatGPT, JavaScript tutorials. So I'm putting a lot of effort creating these videos for you guys. It's just a request to you guys to do subscribe my channel and like this video. It will really encourage me to create more videos for you guys. So let's get started. I've opened up a VS Code and opened up an empty folder. So make sure you have latest version of Node and NPM installed in your system. So in the terminal of VS Code, I'm going to create a new Next.js 13.5 project. So I'll start off with writing npx create next app add latest. I'll hit enter. It will ask me a few questions. So I will hit enter. And it's going to ask me the project name, so I will just be giving the Next-Auth register, anything you want. So I'll go with the TypeScript, ESLint, tailwindcss, yes. I'll go with the source folder, app router, yes, and no for import alias. So the project is created. Now I will start off installing few dependencies that will be required in our app. So I will come in the terminal. Let's go inside the project folder and I will write npm install. And first of all, I need bcrypt.js for encryption of the password. Then I need mongoose. Then I would need Next-Auth. I'll hit enter. Okay, so it's going to install these dependencies after downloading, and I'm gonna go inside the package.json file. So it has actually installed and given it the latest value after each of these dependencies. All right, so it's actually installing these ones as well. So here you can see that it has installed the bcrypt, mongoose, and the Next-Auth over here. All right. So let's run this project first. Npm run dev is the command that I have run. So let's go to the browser and see what we have by default. And that should be coming from this page.tsx file. So this is a default UI. So I'll start off modifying the UI first, adding some navbar and create the forms for login and register. So let's first modify this page.tsx. This file actually executes on the home route. So I will remove everything within this main element. So after I remove these, I'm going to add a home page text inside it. Let's add the h1 and I'm going to write the home page. Now let's go to the browser. And here you can see that it's showing the home page and it's working fine. And this is the home route. Let me close it. And I'm going to open up the layout.tsx file, and these are all the children that will render all the files and the components that I'll be creating in this app directory. If you don't know anything about Next.js 13, check out my playlist Next.js 13 tutorials. You can learn everything about this technology. Okay, so this is the children, and above this I will first wrap it within the div just to add some tailwind styles to it. So I will start off by writing class name, and inside it I will add max auto, max width 5xl, and text I will add the 2xl. I will be adding the gap 2, and mobile will be the 10. Okay, so this is the div, and below this, above this children, I'll be creating a new component which I will call a navbar. And the navbar will be visible to all the pages that I will be navigating to. So first of all, for that, I will be creating a new folder inside this source folder, and I will name it components. Inside this components, I'll be creating a new file, and I'm going to name it navbar.tsx. Okay, I'm using the VS Code extension that I can use, RAFCE, and it has automatically created this stuff for me. So first of all, at the top, I will be importing stuff. One for link. Link I will be using to navigate from one route to another route. So from next/link. All right. And then I will be using the router instead. I can only work with the link in this file. Okay, so inside this navbar, I can actually start off creating a UL. Okay, and inside the UL I can create the li elements. So inside it I can start off creating a div, and inside this div I can create a link element which I have imported above. So first one will be targeting the home page, and then inside this link I can have the li home. All right, so let's save it. So this is the first link that I have created. Let's first import this navbar component in my layout file. So I will start off writing the navbar. It will show me a hint. Yes, so this navbar is going to be visible to all the components which I will be navigating to. So there seems an error, so I need to close it actually. Okay, so I have saved it. I have saved both of these files. So let's navigate to, so now you can see that this is the home route. I can click on it and it is already on this home route. So our navbar is visible along with this home page component element, the home page. Okay, so now let's go to the navbar, and inside it I will start off adding few styles to it. So I will be writing flex, I will be writing justify between, and then I will be writing the M10 items center. Okay, so let's save it and let's refresh, and you will not see any difference right now. So I will be creating new divs under it. So this div is going to contain all the navbar elements on the right side at the top. Okay, so I will just copy pasting this stuff inside it. So this one is actually referring to the dashboard. So first of all, I'll be writing the dashboard here, and I can change it over here. This will not be navigating to, it will show 404 because I've not created any file for this particular route as of now. Okay, so this is the dashboard. I can create more links for it. So I can have dashboard, and then I can have the login, and then I can have the sign up. Okay, and this I can call anything. I can call it register or anything I want. So let's save it now. Let's go and let's refresh, and now you can see that there is a justify between and there is a space in between over here. All right, and to add some space and make it look nicer, I can go on this div and I can add a class name, and I can add the flex gap 10. Okay, so let's save it. Now you will see that it's looking like this and it's looking fine, and there is a space around it as well. And if I click on any of these, you will see there will be a 404 because these are the files which I have not yet created. I'll be coming to this file again because I'll be implementing the logic of the sign in, sign out, and when I'm authenticated, I want to hide these couple of links and I want to show the email ID and the logout button, which I'll be coming back to this navbar file. All right, so first of all, I need to create these three components that will be referring to the three routes. So inside this app folder, I'll be creating a folder, and the first one I'll be giving it a register. Make sure the name of this folder should be matching with this one, this route href value over here, which we have added the sign up. Okay, so I can actually change the route stuff, the register over here, so that it can target the same folder name. And after that, I can create the page.tsx, and RAFCE, it's going to create a page, and I can change its name to register. Okay, let's copy paste over here. So it has been created. Now let's create another folder, and I can name it login. And inside the login, let's create the page.tsx file, RAFCE, and I can change the text over here. So let's create another folder, not file. I'm going to create a folder name dashboard, and it will be having a file page.tsx, RAFCE, and then the dashboard. All right, so let's save all of these files and let's go. Let's first try to refresh, and now I'm at the home route. I can navigate to the dashboard, I can navigate to the login, register. So this is the content visible. So our routing system is working fine, and we are good to go. So now I want to implement the register functionality first, including the validations of the form and also the data storage for the user in the MongoDB. Okay, so I'm going to open up the page.tsx file within this register route, and inside this div I'll start off designing the form first of all. Okay, so this is the div. I'm going to create another div inside it, and inside this div I'll start off writing the h1, and inside this h1 I can add the register heading. Okay, and in the first div I will be adding the class name, and I'll start off writing the flex. I assume that you have a little bit understanding on the designing. This tutorial is not specifically on the Tailwind CSS, so I'll just copy pasting few of the designs. You can learn Tailwind separately if you want, and I have a plan to create a separate video for the Tailwind as well. And for the second div I will add a class name, and for this I will add another styles for the second div, and this is for the heading. And within this div below this h1 I also want to add the class name to this register text as well. I want to make this register text a little bit bigger, so I've added this tailwind styles. So below h1 I will start off creating a form element. Okay, and this form element is going to contain the input, and it's going to be having the type of the text first of all, and then we can have a class name which I will be modifying just now, and then we can have a placeholder email and I'll be giving it a required field. Okay, so for the class name let's add the class name to it like this. These are the tailwind classes which I have added, and I'll just be copy pasting it for the password. So this is for the text, and for the password I can actually change the type to password, and it will handle the validations by default to some extent, and placeholder would be the password as well. And then we have the required field, and we are pretty much done with this as well. Okay, and below this I will be adding a button, and button will be of type submit, and then I have this class name, and I want to add some styles to this button as well, so I'll be writing this styles for the tailwind. All right, so let's save it. Let's go to the browser and see what we have. All right, so it's looking so great. We don't have the text of button, but the overall form is looking good. All right, so let's add the text for the button. So I have actually added this thing, so I will be adding the register text and close it with the button. All right, so it's looking great. And below this I want to add some error handling, which I will not be doing just now, but I want to add a link to the login page, so we can actually navigate to the login page directly from the register page as well. So below this form I'll be creating another link, so I can add a link to it, and inside this link I can have the login with an existing account. Okay, so this is added, so let's save it. There seems an error which I think I have to import at the top, so let's import that. And there should not be any error now, and it should be giving an error for the href which I need to provide to navigate to the login page. So let's add the href. All right, so this is going to navigate to the login page, and also I want to add some class to it for the styling. So now let's go, and now you can see that login with an existing account is looking fine. All right, so above this I also want to add this or as well. Okay, so now you can see that login with an existing account is working fine. I can navigate to the login page from here, and I can navigate to the register page. So our design process for the register form is pretty much complete. Now I want to configure MongoDB in my project, so that when we add a new user, email and password over here, click on the register button, the new data for this user should be added in the MongoDB. Okay, so first of all you need to go to this cloud.mongodb.com and sign up with your account, any email ID you can use, and after that you need to go to this projects folder, projects route, and I will be clicking on the new project, and here I can name any project to it. So I can write next 13 and I can write the MongoDB. Okay, and I can click on the next, leave it like this. I'll be clicking on the create project from here. All right, so once it's getting created, it will be navigated to another page, and here we will be creating a new cluster. So I'll be clicking on this button, and here I can actually select any package, so we don't need any paid account for this video. I'll be clicking on this free, and we can select any provider for the cloud. I'll leave it like this. I can click on the create. Okay, so I'm going with the default settings for it. So now I need to set the username and the password. So here I can set the username, and then I can set any password to it, and I can click on the create user. But before that, I need to copy paste this password to somewhere, because I'll be needing this password in our project configuration file. So I'll just be copying it, and then I will be pasting it in my project. So I'll clicking on the create user, so it will be created with that username and the password. All right, so below this I can actually allow my IP to access this database. So it's actually already added by default. So now if we want to allow any other IP, we can go to this network access and add any other IP, and we also want to make this database public, so whoever wants to access it can actually access it from all over the world. So this IP is already accessed on my network. So I'll click on the finish and close. So congratulations on setting up the access rules. Go to the overview, and after this I will be having this connect button. I can click on this connect button, and I can click on this driver, and I can actually copy paste this URL. But before that, I've already copied the password, which I need to save somewhere, and let me save it somewhere here. And now I can actually copy this stuff over here. Okay, this URL, all right, which I will be needing. And after this is pretty much it we need to do here, and click on the close. And now we are already in that particular next 13 MongoDB. And after that, we can click on the database, and here we can actually check all the collections by clicking on this browse collection button. But before that, let's go to the project and configure our project to connect our project with the MongoDB, which we have just configured. So here I'm gonna open up this file. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to create a new env file, .env here. Okay, so in this file I'll be creating and copy pasting that URL which I have just copied, and I can name it mongo URL, mongo_URL equals to, and I will be pasting that URL which I have just copied. Okay, and then I will be replacing this password field with the password which I copied previously. Make sure you also copied that one. And after that, we want to give the name of the database which we want. So before this question mark, I'll be giving any name to it. So I can name auth mongo next. Okay, this is the name of database. You can name anything. In real world project, you would like to name the project of like a blog app or e-commerce app or something representing your brand. Okay, so that's pretty much it we need to do in this file for now, until we don't work with the Next-Auth. So let's close it now, and I'm going to create a new folder within this source folder. So I'm going to name it let's add the utils folder here. Okay, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to name it db.js. All right, so in this file I'm going to import mongoose, which we installed at the start of this video. So I will be importing mongoose. Okay, and then I will be creating the const connect function async, and we don't need anything from here. And here, first of all, I'll be writing mongoose.connections 0.ready state if it is already connected, we don't want to make a connection again with the database, because whenever we will be making a connection or call an API, we will be needing the connection to the database. So this is must when we are trying to implement it in Next.js application. Okay, and after that, let's add the try catch, and I'll be using await. Mongoose connect is the built-in function, and in this one I can actually write that variable name which I just created. This complete URL will be required to connect to that database. Okay, so I'll be pasting the name of that Mongo URL, and it will give us an object. And I'll be just copy pasting few formalities, you can say. These are actually required. So use new URL parser for parsing the data, and unified topology is added over here. And also let's add the catch here as well for the error. Okay, and I'll be throwing a new error. So error connecting to the mongoose, or anything you want to add inside it. So once that will be done, I can actually log that out. So Mongo connection is done. Mongo connection successfully established, or anything you want to add over here. And after that, I can actually export it from here. So export default connect. All right, so you can actually ignore that. This is just the parsing error, so I'll just be ignoring this. So let me go through it again. So we have mongoose connection ready state true, yes, that's fine, and we are actually connecting with that URL which we just copied, and it is true. We are this thing. Okay, so let's close it. Now I'm going to create a new API in my Next.js. So I'll be creating an API folder in my app directory, and inside API folder I'll be creating the API route which I want to create. So I will be creating a new folder, and I will be naming it a register. Make sure that this register is referring to the API, not the actual front end route, because I'm inside the API folder. Okay, so inside this register I will be actually creating this route.ts. Okay, so inside this route.ts I will be handling the user registration process, but before that I need to create a mongoose model for that. So I will be come over here, and I'll be creating a new folder, and in this folder I will be naming it models. If you don't know how to create mongoose model, I've already created a complete crash course on Node Express MongoDB that consists of 42 videos. You can check that out to understand completely about the mongoose, Node and Express. So in this model I'll be naming it user.js. Okay, and in this file we actually need to import the mongoose, and from the mongoose I need to create the schema for that. All right, and for creating the schema we need to use this schema. It is actually a class which provide us this object, and inside it we can create different objects. For one for the email, other one is the password. So email type string, obviously email would be of type string. Unique means that we want it to be unique, so no two users can have the similar email ID. It is required. Password is a string, and it is not required because we will be storing the data of the user who is getting logged in using the GitHub. Okay, and while login with the GitHub we don't have the password, so that's why here I have added the required field for the password as empty. We can add the separate validation on the front end whether the password is given when login with the credentials, email and the password. All right, time spent will be automatically adding when it was created, when it was updated will be automatically added over here. And once that is added, I will be adding the default. And first of all I need to check if it is already existing. So mongoose model, or I can use the mongoose model, and then I can name this model user. All right, and then I can give the name of user schema variable which I have created above. So that's pretty much it we need to do in this model file for the mongoose, and I think we are good with it. let's close it. Now we need to work with this backend API which we want to create. So here, first of all, I will be creating and importing few stuff. First of all, I need to import that user model which I have just created, and it should be coming from that utils folder. It's not showing over here, so let's try to add that. So let's add this, and we have the utils, and then we have uh, we have to have the models, okay, models, and then we have this user. All right, and after that we want to import the connect function which we are exporting from the db.js file which we have just created. So it should be coming from that folder. It's not showing here as well, so I will be manually writing add, and then we have this utils, and then we have this db file. All right, so I also want to import the bcrypt which I installed at the start of this video from the bcrypt.js file, and this is to encrypt the password before storing it in the database. All right, and then since I'm using the TypeScript, I can actually import the next response from the next server. All right, so sign up require the post request because we want to pass the data from the front end. So I will be creating a post request for that. So post equals to the async, and then I will be creating a request any arrow function, and let's close it. All right, so first of all, let's get the data which is coming from the front end using the request object for this function, and I can get that and destructure it using the email and the password which will be coming from the front end. So I can write the await request.json. all right, and after that I can actually connect with the database. Okay, so now what I want to do first, I want to return the default response. So first of all, I can add the try, and then I will be adding the catch block here. So inside the try, I will be saving the user after validating, and that will be stored in the database. Okay, and in the catch block, I can return the new next response error, and I can pass the status as well if I want to. So the status will be 500 because this is an error. Okay, and we can give any type to it like this any. All right, so after this, let's try to check if the user with this email ID is already exists in the database or not. If it's already existing, then we will not allow it to be created again because email ID is unique. So I will be writing the const existing user equals to the await user dot find one, and then I can actually write the email. I will be checking with the email if it exists, and I will be checking if existing user is true, means that the email ID is already existing in the database. Then we will be still be returning the error message next response, and I can actually return the email is already in use. Okay, and then we can actually pass the status 400. Okay, let's close it like this. All right, and if it is not true, then we will proceed further, and after that I can hash the password. So hashed password like this, and I can write the await bcrypt dot hash is the function, and I will be passing the password, and I can add the complexity with the number up to 5 times, and then I will be constructing a new object for the new user equals to new user, which is the model, mongoose model, which we have just created, and I'll be passing an object email, and then the password will be equals to the hashed password. And then I will be coming inside this try block, and I will be writing this await new user dot save. It will be saved, and then I can return a success response. User is registered. All right, and then I can pass the status 200. Okay, so there seems an error. Let's add the curly braces. So let's save this file. So I think we are done with this file and we don't need to add any other validations. So we are done by creating this API actually. Okay, now I'm going to go to this page.tsx file, which is the front-end URL for the register. And this is the form. And in this form, I will be creating an onSubmit event handler. And using that event handler, I'll be calling this API, which will be on the route localhost colon 3000/register, which is the name of that folder. Okay, and it will be stored in the database for that. In this form, let's add an onSubmit. So onSubmit and handle submit, which I have yet to create. Const handle submit function, which I have created, and it's going to be an async function, e of type any, and then the arrow function. All right, and e is to prevent default, to prevent the default behavior of it. Let's write the prevent default like this, and then I will be fetching the email and the e.target.value, but the target will be giving us two values, so I can get the value from here, and then I can write the password from the second index. All right, so let's first add and log this out. Email and the password is being fetched successfully or not. So in the terminal, there seems an error for the client component. So actually Next.js 13, whenever we are using the hooks or any events like the on click, on submit, we have to convert the component into the client component. So at the top, I'll simply writing the use client within the double quotes. And after saving the files, you will see in the terminal that the error is gone. Now I'll be going to the browser, and let's refresh first, and I'll be simply clicking on this register button, and let's go to the console window and verify. So we have this email ID and password is getting printed, so it means that we are successfully being fetching the email and the password. And I'm using the console ninja extension, and it's also directly showing the output of the console over here as well. So let's remove this up. And first of all, I will be validating the email and the password. And for validating the email, I'll be using the string test function, and I'll be creating a separate function above this function. So this is valid email. It will be receiving an email. So this is the regex, which you can understand. It is a separate different topic, and it will be calling the test function. And this test function is going to be given with the email, and if the email is successfully validated, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Okay, so I can write if is valid email. If it is not valid, then I will simply be return empty, so it will not be processed again. Okay, and then if this is not getting triggered, if email is valid, then I'll be checking the password as well. So password, if the password is invalid or the password dot length is less than 8, we are just validating it, so length is less than 8. Okay, and if it is true, then again we are going to return this thing. Okay, this is just for validation that I am doing. And after this, I also want to set an error below this form over here. So if there is some kind of error over here, I want to set and show the red color error, that invalid email or invalid password, stuff like that. So I'll be creating a state variable within this component. So I can write error, and then I can write the set error equals to use state from the React, and it is going to receive an empty string. And for navigation, let's also try to add the router as well, which will be coming from the use router from the next/navigation. Okay, so this is the function actually. So now let's add the space, and below this I will be calling an API which I have just created over here, route.ts. Okay, so in this file I will be writing a try catch first. So in this try, I will be receiving the response await. I'll be using the built-in function fetch, and I'll be writing the API slash register is the name of that folder within the API folder. And this is an API. Okay, since it is a post request, and I will be passing the data inside it. So I will be giving it a method, and method is the post. And after this I can actually pass the headers as the JSON, because email and password will be passed as the JSON data. Okay, so content type colon equals to application slash JSON. Okay, so it should be the headers actually. So content type JSON, and then I'll be writing the body JSON.stringify, and inside it I'll be passing an email and then the password which is being passed from the form below. Okay, so once that is done, I will be having it's throwing an error because I've not added this catch block yet. So let's add the error here, and like this, and now the error is gone. Okay, so now once I will receive the response, I'll check if the response dot status is equals to 400. Then I will set the error to this email is already registered. Okay, we know that we have created this API and we are returning the statuses from here. So if email is already registered, we are returning the status 400. If email is successfully user is successfully registered, we are setting the status 200. So this is what we are using over here. Okay, and now I can write if the response dot status equals to 200, then I will simply set error to an empty string, and I will be navigate to the login page because we are successfully registered. All right, and if there is an error, let me copy this set error, and we can anything error and the try again, and we can log this as well for our understanding and help. Okay, so let's save it, and at the top we can set the error message over here as well, just like we have added over here. So set error. Before returning, if there is an error, we can add different validations. If the email is invalid, we can write the email is invalid, and if the password is not valid, we can write the password is invalid. Okay, so let's save it, and below this I can actually show this error message as a string. So I'm going to come down, and below this button we can actually show the error within this form, and for that I can write this one. This is a p tag, and if the error exists then it will show the p tag, otherwise it will not show. So let's save it now, and it should work fine now. So we have written pretty much a lot of code, and I'm just going to refresh the page, and currently if I go to the browse collection, I'm just verifying if there is no user already existing. So there is no user. Let's refresh. Yes, there is no user currently added over here. So I'm gonna go here and I can click on this register. Okay, so there is an error, internal server error. All right, so this is where the error is showing mongoose.model. So let's open up that model file, user.js, and it is actually only model, not the models. Okay, so let's save it now. Let's try again. Let's go to the browser, let's refresh, and I'm gonna click on the register now. So let's see what happens. So if it is successful, And yes, we are navigated to the login page. The reason it took a lot of time because first it was establishing the connection with the MongoDB. So we can see that Mongo connection successfully established, which is being printed from this log, and the API is working fine as well. And the reason I'm telling this because we are successfully navigating to the login route because the status is 200. Now in order to verify, we need to go to this one. Let's refresh this and it should be working fine. All right, so this is the name of database and this is the user successfully registered with the encrypted password along with the created add and updated add field. So our registration process is complete using Next.js 13.5 along with the MongoDB. Now before working on the Next-Auth for login, I want to test the validations which I've just added. Let's first try to register with the same user. So I'm clicking on the register. Now you can see that email is already registered. It's working fine. Let's add the invalid email over here. So let's click on register, invalid email. Let's change the password like this. So it's showing only one error because we have handled it like this. All right, so validation is working fine. Now it's time to go ahead and integrate the Next-Auth for the login with the credentials and login with GitHub. Now I'll be using the Next-Auth.js in order to integrate the login functionality using credentials and the GitHub provider. And the cool thing about this toolkit is that if we go to the providers, we are given with a lot of these providers using which we can enable the login functionality. And I'll be showing you how we can do it with the GitHub, but the code level implementation is pretty much same with all the providers, whichever you want to use. Okay, so we have the Google, we have the Instagram login, LinkedIn, and GitHub, GitLab, email, Dropbox, and all these providers. Okay, first of all, we need to install Next-Auth, which we have already installed in our project. And then if we go down, we first need to create this file, Next-Auth.js, within the square brackets, and before that we need to add ... and let's create this file and add up this particular piece of code. So first of all, I need to create a folder. So within the API directory, I'll be creating an auth folder. Let's see, auth and then Next-Auth. So I'll be creating, so it's also showing that if we are using the version 13.2 or above, we can check out this guide. This is for the lower versions, and I already know that what is written in the guide. So I'll just be showing you. So I'll be writing auth, and inside it, I'll be writing Next-Auth. Okay, this is the folder. I'm not writing .js after that as it is showing over here. Instead, I'll be creating a new file inside it, route.ts, since we are using the TypeScript. All right, make sure you write it and spell it just like this, which I have written. So inside it, I actually need to add these providers. Okay, so I will just be writing it like this, just copy it and paste it like this. So it's giving few errors because we are using TypeScript, which I'll just be fixing in front of you. First of all, let's go at the top. We need that. We need GitHub provider, and along with the GitHub provider, we need credentials provider. From this URL, Next-Auth providers credentials, and we are using TypeScript. We will also be needing these types, account and the user as auth user, which I've given the alias name to this user. And then we will be needing the this one, let's say the bcrypt user connect, because we will be connecting to database to validate if the credentials which we are logging in is actually registered in the database or not. We don't need bcrypt here. Okay, and we'll be needing this user to actually create a new user using the login with GitHub. Okay, so after that, we are actually using the Next-Auth. We can write any data type to this Next-Auth options, and after that we can add different providers. Currently it is GitHub provider, and above that we can add the credentials provider, which we have added above, and it will contain different objects inside it. All right, so after that we have this GitHub provider, and GitHub provider actually need the client ID, client secret, which I'll just be showing you how we can create that. To resolve this error, we can write question mark and empty string after that, and we can write question mark and empty string after that. And the credentials provider is actually throwing an error. So let's fix this error. First of all, we need to give it an ID. So I'll be writing the credentials, and then I'll be writing a name with the capital C. Okay, and then I will be giving it a credentials object. Okay, and it is going to take an email, and I'm going to give it the email label email, and then I need to provide it type and then the text. Okay, and just like the email, we also need to add password. So password, label password, and the text would be the password as well. Okay, so this is the password, text would be the password. All right, and the next property is the authorize, because we want to authorize it with the credentials which we will be providing. Okay, so I will be writing the async authorize function, and it's going to be given up with credentials of type any. We can give a proper data type to it. So this one, in this authorize, in this credentials, we are given with the data that we will be writing in the form of login page. Okay, we can get that from this credentials. In the authorize, we can actually return something from here. Okay, so first of all, I can write await connect. We can connect to the database, and then we can process our logic. We can create a new user. We can check if the user is already existing in the database or not, and if it is not registered, we want it to be not to logged in automatically. We want to throw an error that the user is not already registered. Okay, so I can write the try and then the catch with an error, and this catch error is going to throw an error. Let's add this statement, and inside this try we can check if the const user equals to the await user dot find one. We can pass an object with an email ID and with passing the credentials dot email. Okay, and if the user exists, means that we can log in actually using the credentials. Then I'm going to check if the password is validated or not, that is stored in the database, and we can do that is password correct equals to await bcrypt dot compare compare, and inside it I can write the credentials dot password and then the user dot password. Okay, so which is stored in the database. All right, make sure, yes, we needed the bcrypt actually. So bcrypt like this, bcrypt from bcrypt.js. Okay, so now if the password is correct, then we are navigating and returning something. So I will be, if the password is correct, then we are actually simply return these things, and everything will be handled by it automatically. And let's add the data type to it like this. All right, so I think we are pretty much done with this stuff, and this provider will be running when we are logging with the credentials, and we actually need to create it to actually enable the GitHub login stuff, which we have not done yet, which I'll be adding in the environment file because I'm fetching it from the env file GitHub ID and the GitHub secret. But first of all, I need to verify the credentials provider if it's working fine or not. For that, I first need to go to the login route and build up the form for the login page. But first of all, I want to create the session provider so that when we are logged in, we are able to access if the session for that logged in user actually exists or not. Next.Auth automatically handles the session. For that, we need to add few configurations. So in this utils folder, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to name it session provider.tsx. Okay, so inside it I will first change it to use client, and after that I will be importing the react from the react, and then I will be needing to import the session provider from Next.Auth react. Okay, so session provider from Next.Auth react. All right, so after that I will be exporting an auth provider from here, so I can name anything to it. So auth provider equals to, it will be receiving all the children, and we are actually enabling all the children to have access to this session variable, so that in any component, in any route, we can check if the user is logged in or not. Okay, so I'm actually returning the session provider by adding the children within it. Okay, and then I'm writing the export default and then auth provider, which I have created above. All right, so once we are done with it, we need to go to this layout file and we need to wrap everything within this session provider so that our navbar, including the children, can have access to the whole session which we are actually using. All right, so first of all, I'm going to go at the top and I need to import that session. So first of all, I'll be importing the get server session. Get server session is actually required if we have the server component, and in that server component, if we want to check if the user is logged in or not, for that reason we need this get server session. Okay, and after that we need the session provider which we have just created. So I'll be writing the session provider from that particular folder which is in the utils folder. Currently it's not showing that, so I don't know why it's not showing. So session provider, which is coming from the at utils, and then we have the session provider. Okay, so I'll come down and first of all I'll be creating a variable for that get server session. So session equals to await get server session, and I will wrap everything within that session provider. So it is await, so I'll change it to the async function, the root layout. Okay, so outside this div, I will wrap it with the session provider and I'll be passing the session for the get server session. Okay, and I will move everything, the whole stuff within this session provider. Now all of our routes, all of our components will have access to that session. So let's save it, and that's pretty much it we need to do in the layout file, I believe. Okay, so we have the navbar automatically added, we have this by default added, we have this. So let's close it. Now I want to go to the login page and I want to build up the form for that login page. Okay, and for building up that form, I'll be using the same kind of layout for the register page. So I'll just be copy pasting few of the stuff to save some of our time. So I'll just be copying this whole div. Okay, so let's go over here, let's try to paste this div like this, and we don't have the handle submit, we have this register. Let me change the title of it to login, and then we have this text email, we have this password, we have this button, and we can change it to the sign in from register. And below this we have this error which we have yet to create, and then below this we want to add the login with GitHub button, and then we want to add the sign in with actual credentials which is actually needs to be created. Okay, so first of all, let's comment this line. We don't have the error, and let's remove this whole stuff first of all. Okay, and outside this form, first of all, I want to add the login with GitHub button. Okay, so let's add that. Actually, we needed that maybe, so we have this one, so I can add the register, and we can have this text register here. Okay, and we can import this link from the next navigation. Let's import this at the top. So I will be adding the link from next/navigation, and it should not be destructured like this. Okay, so this has been added. There should not be any error over here. And the reason it's showing this error, JSX element link does not have the construct called signature. So why is it throwing this error? So actually next link here. Okay, like this. All right, so now we need to implement the login with that credential. So we have this sign in button, and this sign in button is going to call this handle submit button. So let's create that handle submit button just like we added in our register. And I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to copy everything from here. Let's add this. So I have repeated that. Let's remove it. Okay, I only want to copy this handle submit actually. Okay, so here I've just pasted that, and I will be adding the use router and then the error state as well, just like I added in my register page. So I'll be writing the quick fix from the React use state, and the use router should be from the navigation, next navigation. Okay, so we have this validation here as well. So I'll just copy pasting from the register page validation. So email validation is added, and then we have the handle submit. Let's try to see what we have here. We need these lines. We are validating the email, and we can actually validate the password as well. Let's keep that. And we don't need this complete thing is useless. And I'll just be removing everything from here, and I'll just be showing you we are given with the built-in sign in sign out functions provided by the Next-Auth, and for that I can actually import that at the top from the Next-Auth/React, and it is given with the sign in and the use session. And the use session hook actually gives us this session variable, and this session variable give us some data, give us some status that if the user is authenticated or not, and based upon this variable we can show some kind of logic. We can show the loader, we can show the error message, or we can navigate from this page to another page if we want this page to be authenticated or unauthenticated. Okay, so let me show you how we can do this. Okay, so here first of all I'll be using this sign in function below this after these validations. So for sign in function I'll be writing const res await, and I can write the sign in function which is coming from this. I don't need the sign from crypto, I need this function. Okay, here, so it is provided with the credentials. We can provide anything to it, any provider to it. It can be GitHub, Google, Facebook, Instagram. I'm giving the credentials provider inside it, and this name is the ID which I have added over here. Let me show you this one ID. Okay, so inside it I will be first redirecting it to the false. I want to manually redirect. I don't want it to be automatically redirect to some route. Okay, so I will be giving it an email and the password. Okay, so after this I can validate with the error message. So we can write if there is an error, in login, invalid email or password, and this error can be returned from that this validation which we are returning over here. So this is where we are throwing an error. Okay, and we are checking if the user exists, then we are actually returning something. Okay, so invalid, and then here we are checking if the response.url property exists. We are navigating to the dashboard page. So if we are successfully logged in, means the response will have the URL property exists inside it, and it will have some value as well. And if we are logged in successfully, we will be navigating to the dashboard page automatically. Otherwise, we are just setting the error because of this. Okay, so I can actually uncomment this. It will show an error. And let's see what we have here. So we have this session, and we can use this session to automatically navigate to the dashboard page as well using the use effect route. Okay, so I can write the use effect, and I can write it like this, and inside it I can use the session dot status equals to, I can write authenticated. Okay, and if the session status is authenticated, I can use the router replace, and then I can navigate to the dashboard. The reason I'm writing this because user might want to manually change the route when a user is on the login page. Then it should automatically be navigate to the dashboard page. We don't want user to navigate to the login page if user is already authenticated. User first have to sign out to navigate to the login page. Okay, so here this is why we are doing, and then we can add the dependencies as well if the session is changed or if the router is changed. Okay, and we can import this as well from the React. All right, so I think it will work fine. Let's save it. Let's see if there are any error over here. So we have this use state. Let's rerun the project so that it rebuilds some kind of stuff. So we have to add the use client at the top since we are using the event handlers. So I'll be writing the use client at the top. Okay, so now error is gone. It is compiled successfully. Now let's go to the browser and log in with the user which we are actually registered in the database. So it is showing some kind of errors in the console window, and we need to first go in the code and let's see what's wrong with this file route.ts within the Next-Auth. So I'm gonna go down and everything working fine here. There is no error. All right, so we actually need to export this auth option from inside it, otherwise it will not work. So export const handler equals to, and I can use the Next-Auth which I imported here. Okay, and inside this Next-Auth I can pass these options which I have created. Okay, and along with that I also want to export the handler. Okay, so handler as get and handler as post, handler as put. Since we only need the get and post, so we don't need to add the put or delete request. So I'll just be saving these. Now let's go and let's refresh, and now you can see there is no error in the console window. This registered user is already registered. Let me re-verify this thing, and I'll be using the same email ID to log in with the user Umair2 which is registered. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. Let's navigate to the login page, and I'm going to click on this sign in button. So login is successful. We are successfully navigated to the dashboard page, and we can see this dashboard text over here. All right. And we also need to make this dashboard protected. So when we are not logged in, but before that, once we are logged in, we want to change these links at the navbar. So I'm going to open up the navbar file in the components, and first of all I will be importing few stuff. So I'll start off importing with the session, and I also need to import the signout function from that Next-Auth/React. Okay, and along with the session I can use session hook as well. So below this, I can use const and I can write the data session equals to use session. Okay. And I can give the data type of any to it. You can create the type for that. I've already created a video on the TypeScript for the React and Next.js. You can watch that video if you want to learn about the typing and creating interfaces and classes and stuff. Okay, so first of all, this is where we are showing the dashboard, login, and the register. Okay, so for the login and register, I want to check if the session exists. Session, if it exists, then I want to show up. If the session does not exist, then I want to show up these two links. Okay, and I need to put these inside these. Okay, and after that I can have another parentheses, and inside these parentheses I can check if the session.user.email exists. But first of all, let's add. So inside 8 I will be writing an li element, and above that I can also show the email for the logged in user. So session.user.email. So this is how we can get the email for the logged in user, and then we can have the button for sign out. All right, so button, and it can have a logout text inside it. So let's save it. There should not be any error in the console. So there seems an error. What's wrong with it? So I think we need to restart the server, but first of all, let's add some kind of button styling to it. So I'll be giving it a class, and I'll be writing some tailwind styles to it for the logout. And also for this button, I will also be adding the on click event. And to this event, I'll be calling this function, and I will be writing the sign out function, which is being imported above from the Next-Auth/React. All right, let's restart the project and see if we still see these errors. And ready in 3 seconds. Yes, let's go. React context on a server component. All right, so we need to change it to use client component. So let's go to the browser and let's go to the login page, and let's try to log in again with the user. I'm clicking on the sign in button. So let's see what happens. It's actually should be connecting to the database, and yes, you can see that it was establishing a connection with the MongoDB database first time. So now we have this dashboard, we have this email for the logged in user, and we have this logout button. All right, so we have this dashboard. First of all, let's go to the dashboard page, and I want this page to be only redirected when we are logged in, and for that again we can use the session. But this assume that this component, this route is a server component. Okay, we don't want to make it the client component. For that reason we cannot use this use session, and this is the reason we added this stuff in the layout file get server session. Okay, so we can import it from here. So I'll be writing import get server session from Next-Auth. Okay, so once that is done, I can also import for the redirection. So redirect from next/navigation. Okay, so inside this dashboard component, I can check if the session exists from get server session, because it is a server component. If the session does not exist, then I will be redirecting it to the home route simply. Okay, or the login route, or anything you want. And let's try to add the class to it as well, so that our text is at the center. So before actually go to the browser and test this out, in the terminal you can see that it's showing some kind of stuff, that warning Next-Auth URL. So we need to add some URLs over here in the .env file, and these URLs are not specific to the GitHub provider, but it is required when we are using the Next-Auth. So in this file I will be creating few variables. So that should be the Next-Auth auth underscore URL equals to http colon localhost colon 3000. Okay, and after this we need to add next auth secret. So next auth underscore secret equals to, and we can write anything inside it like ABCD 1 2 3 4. Make sure you add some complex stuff inside it. So when we change the env file, we need to restart the project, and there should not be such error in our terminal after writing this. Okay, so I hope that it's working fine. Let's close this up. Now let's go to the browser and see what we have. So here I'm gonna go to the login page. Again, we are running. Yes, we are running. Let's refresh this page, and in the terminal we don't have those errors now. So I'm going to log in again here. So it's waiting because it's establishing the connection. Yes, it's established. And here you can see that we are successfully navigated to the dashboard page, and we can navigate to the other routes. Now if I log out, it should navigate to the home route, but it's not. It has navigated to the dashboard. Let's see. And we have this validation. All right, so this get server session is actually require an async await. So I'll be writing an await keyword over here. So let's save it now. Let's go. And now you can see that it has navigated to the home route. If I click on the dashboard, you will see that I'm not able to navigate to the dashboard because I'm logged out. Let's log in again. Let's click on the sign in, and I'm logged in again, and now I'm able to navigate to the dashboard route from here because I'm logged in. We have the email ID. Let's log out, and now it has navigated back to the home page. I'm not able to navigate to the dashboard page now. All right, so now it's time to implement the login with GitHub. I'll be adding the button over here, and I need to add some configuration to it. So for that, if we go to our route.ts file, you know that we added this client ID client secret, which we need to create in our GitHub and add it in our .env file. So on your GitHub account, you need to go to the settings of your profile. I'll click on the settings, and below this, you need to click on this developer setting, and in the developer setting you need to click on this OAuth apps, and you need to click on new OAuth app, and here we can name anything to it. So let's add the Next.js 13 auth. Okay, and inside it we need to add the home page URL. We need to update it if we will be deploying our application, but currently we are running it on localhost 3000, so we can select over here. It is optional, we don't need to add that. And now as Next.js provide us a callback URL which we need to provide to it, so this is the URL we need to give it to it. Let me zoom in so you can see this out. So localhost 3000 /API/auth /callback/GitHub. So this is required, you need to add it. And also when you will be deploying your app, you will be needing to update the authorization callback URL over here. All right, so I'll click register application. Okay, so once it is registered, this is the client ID. First of all, let me copy this client ID and let's go in the project. I'm gonna open up that .env file, and this env file, first of all, I'll be creating few variables. Okay, so first of all, it should be the GitHub ID. Make sure you match it with this GitHub ID. Yes, and I'll be pasting this one. Next one is GitHub secret. All right, so GitHub secret equals to which we need to create, and over here it gives us this button, generate a new client secret. I'll click on it. So here I have this secret showing up. You can create yours because after this video I'll be deleting all my secrets and IDs. So I'm gonna go to this and I'm going to paste over here. All right, so that's it for this file. I'm just going to close this, and inside it we have this GitHub ID and GitHub secret. We don't need to do anything for this provider. Now it's time to go to the login page, and I'm going to add a new button for login with GitHub. And for this I'm going to come here, and above this or text I will be creating a button over here. Okay, so let's create a new button. For that I'm going to write a button, and it is going to be taking up the class names, and also it's going to take up the on click. Since it is a client component, yes, it is a client component, and inside it I will be writing an arrow function, and there inside the curly braces I'll be giving it a sign in, and inside the sign in I need to provide it a provider, which is a GitHub. Okay, so let's add the text after that. So close the button, sign in with GitHub. Okay, so I hope that we have already this sign in button which we are using over here. Here we provided the credentials provider. Now here we have actually provided the GitHub provider. All right, so let me add some classes to it so that it looks good. So I'm going to add the class name. So let's save it. Let's go, and now you can see that we have this cool looking sign in with GitHub, and let's log in with it. Let's click on it, sign in with GitHub, and here it is asking me to authorize my application. Let's authorize, and here you are being redirected. Okay, so we are successfully being redirected automatically to the dashboard page. We can navigate to the home route dashboard page, and this is the email ID for the GitHub account I'm using, and we can actually log out. But currently you can see that if I navigate over here, click on the refresh, we can see that we don't have that particular user not added in our MongoDB. Okay, so this is what we need to do now, because it is required when we later on needs to make a complete application for the relationship of different models in Mongoose. Okay, so let's log out, and for that we will be modifying this route.txt file. And if I show you the Next-Auth documentation, it gives us these callback functions which we can use: callback for sign in, callback for redirect, callback for session changes, callback for JWT. So I'll be using the sign in, and using this account, I hope this account provide us the key provider, and we can add an if condition that if the provider is GitHub, then we can perform the logic and connect to the database, and we can create a new user in the database using the GitHub login functionality. So let's open up the route.ts file, and below this array for this provider we can have the callbacks. So I can actually write the callbacks here. Okay, and it gives us this object. So inside this callback I can start off writing an async and then the sign in callback, and it gives us user, it gives us account, and few more stuff. If we go over here, so we can see that profile, email, credentials, but we don't need that for now. So let's add the type to it since we are using the TypeScript. So I'll be writing user, and I can give the auth user. I added these types over here for the user, and this is for the account. Okay, so account, and then this is for the account. All right, so this callback gives us a function. This is a function, and I can check if account dot provider equals to credentials, then I'm simply going to return true. Okay, because we have to return true after the completion of this sign in process. And after this we can check if the account dot provider equals to GitHub, then we can perform the logic and storing the data in the database. Okay, so for that, first I will be connecting it to the database, and then I'm going to write the try catch, because I'm using async await. Whenever we use async await, this is the way we handle the errors. So I can start off writing error message, error, saving user, or we can also show the error as well. And also we'll be returning something, returning false if there is an error. Otherwise, if there is no error, we can first check if the existing user with the email ID is not already exist. Okay, then we will be storing the data in the database. So I'll be writing the existing user equals to the await user dot find one, which I've already imported above all these stuff. This is the user model from the mongoose model. Okay, so I can write the find one with the email user dot email, and I can check if the existing user does not exist, means that we can save it in the database. So let's add the const new user equals to new user, and then the object, and then the email user dot email. Okay, and we have constructed this. Now we can use the await new user dot save and then return true. Okay, and we also need to return true here as well. If the user exists or not, in both the cases we have to return something, otherwise there will be no redirection after that. All right, so let's save it now and it should be working fine. Now let's go to the browser and let's refresh every stuff. We are actually logged in. Let's log out and let's click on the login, and we have everything working well. Let's click on the sign in with GitHub and it should be working fine, and we are actually signed in. Let's go to the MongoDB. Let's refresh, and here it should be having, here you can see that it has actually created this data email ID. There is no password because we are not passing the password over here. We don't have access to the password. So if we log this data out, user account, even the other properties as well, we will be given with all the different properties for the GitHub that we can use, the links, URLs, the repositories, all the followers in our account and all these stuff. So we are successfully able to create new user and storing it in the database. Okay, so we can check all the different validations and navigation from one page to another page. Dashboard is protected because we are not logged in. Let's try to add a new user, Umair3@admin. Let's register it. Yes, it is registered now. Let's go and verify if it's working fine. Let's refresh and it should be created over here. Yes, Umair3@admin.com, and password is also added, the encrypted password, and there will be a validations as well. Sign in, password is invalid. Now we have this email ID that is used to log in with the GitHub. If I try to log in with that particular email ID, ABCD1234, let's click on sign in. You will see that we can modify this error, but I'm not able to log in with this because this email ID exists in the database, but the passwords does not exist because this email ID is used with the sign in with GitHub. So we can modify different validations. I hope that you can add if else condition, add different logics, how we can perform all this stuff. This is a Kickstarter project for the authorization and authentication that we can work with to build a large application in Next.js 13.5 or later versions using the Next-Auth. But there is one issue that I want to show you over here, which I just want to fix that. If we are logged in, let's refresh and let's log in. And we are logged in. Actually we are at the dashboard and we can navigate to the dashboard. We have this email ID which is stored in the database. Now if I manually go to the login route, you will see that for 1 second it will show me the login form and then it navigates back to the dashboard page. And if I go to the register page manually, and you will see that it is showing the navbar as we are logged in, but still it is showing this register form over here. This is what I want to fix now. So first of all, I want to fix that login flicker. So if I navigate manually to the login page, even after login successfully, it shows the login form for 1 second. So I've already created a video on how to protect routes in Next.js in 4 different ways. You can check that out, the recent video in my Next.js 13 tutorial playlist in my channel. All right. So for fixing this 1-second flicker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this code a little bit. So first of all, use session gives us different properties, not just the session. So I'm going to comment this line and I'm going to add it again. So first of all, it gives us the data and I'm going to add its type session, and then it gives us a status, which is I can give the session status. Okay. And it is from the use session again, which we are already using. Okay, so now rather than actually using the status from the session, we can directly use the session status over here, and we can use the session status over here as well. All right, so let's save it. Now I'm going to come over here and add the condition over here, and we can add the session status is not equals to authenticated. And all right, so let's save it. And during that 1 second, I also want to add the loader over here, so we can have the loading value within this session status as well. So I can write the session status equals to, and it gives us the loading. So if it is a loading, I can actually return something inside it. So I can write the h1 and I can write the loading dot dot dot. Okay, so let's save it now and let's go to the browser and let's refresh. And if I manually navigate to the login route now, let's see what happens. So it's showing the loading and navigate it to the dashboard page. So we have avoided the flickering of the login form using this awesome technique. Now let's add this condition on the register route as well. So I'm going to open up the page.tsx for the register. So I'm going to go and copy the stuff from here. So I need this use effect, and I need above use session variable. So I'm going to paste it over here, and we don't have the use session from the Next-Auth. We have to import the use effect from the React. All right. And also we will be importing this loading as well. So I will come down, and here I will be adding this stuff. Okay. And also I need to add the condition for this div, the return statement, just like this. So I'll be adding this one. So I'll just paste it over here. Let's save it. And I hope that it will work fine, just like the login route. So let's refresh. I'm already logged in, and I can actually navigate to the register page, hit enter. So it's showing loading, and now it has navigated to the dashboard route. So it's working fine. Let's navigate, and yeah. And also on the navbar, we should avoid showing the login and the register links as well for even 1 second if we are logged in. And for that case, we can also add different kinds of loaders, add different condition. It depends upon the designs and the UI of your application. All right, so I think I pretty much covered each and every concept of authorization and authentication in Next.js 13.5, and I've explained you how we can use the MongoDB to store the data for the users, how we can use the Next-Auth.js package to implement the authentication using the credential provider and also the GitHub providers. So if you have liked this video, do subscribe my channel and like the video as well, and comment below if you have any question. I'm planning to create a long production level video in Next.js 13.5. I'll be waiting for your suggestions in the comment of this video. I'll really appreciate if you subscribe my channel, because I'm putting a lot of effort building these videos for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video.